I want to start by sharing a video we recently created that explains why we're doing what we're about to do. The video is called It's Time, and we hope you'll be as moved by it as we were. Here's a stunning fact to ponder. In virtually every country in the world, from the US to China to Argentina to Nigeria, Russia, Dubai, everywhere, the majority of classrooms have two things in common. Number one, they look amazingly similar. And number two, they look pretty much the same way they did 100 years ago. Not sure what I'm talking about? Here's what a classroom looked like in 1917. Here's what a classroom looks like in 2017. But if you want to see something even more amazing, just Google the word classroom, followed by any random list of 50 countries, and here's what you'll see. In the US, in Japan, in Nigeria, in Afghanistan, in Russia, in Korea, in Pakistan, in the Middle East, in Eastern Europe, in the Himalayan mountains, in Vietnam, in Iran, in rich countries, in developing countries, in the military, in prison, and in higher ed. Question: how is it that countries that are so radically different in language, race, culture, politics, religion, values, wealth, size, geography, history have classrooms that are so strikingly similar to each other? Why is it that so many of these classrooms are so similar to classrooms from 100 or more years ago? Especially when virtually every other area of human experience has profoundly changed. When we look at these classrooms side by side, what are we seeing that makes these images so recognizably similar, though the teachers and the students are vastly different? You know what the answer is? In these classrooms, we are seeing educators lining students up like widgets on an assembly line and attempting to pour knowledge into their heads. This is astounding. We are well into the new millennium, and educators in virtually every school, school district, school system are talking about 21st century learning. Yet, one foundational thing that could most profoundly transform teaching and learning is still unchanged in so many ways: classrooms around the world. An old adage says, do no harm. Once a doctor knows that a previously accepted treatment for cancer may be doing more harm than good, using or supporting that treatment is no longer acceptable. On the day that a third world dentist discovers that he can fill and cap a rotting tooth, yanking teeth that he knows he can save becomes a harmful breach of professional conduct. I was recently asked a series of very tough questions by one of our team members. If flipped learning is so great, why isn't everyone flipping their classroom? Why are we accepting passive learning in any school when we know that it's not creating self-directed, world-class learners? Why are we casually accepting passive learning when we believe that it's a breach of the most fundamental principles we know about effective instruction? Why are we encouraging or enabling students to avoid owning their learning and setting them up to be ill-prepared for the demands of the future? Why should we allow tradition, ego, school culture, or conflict avoidance to override what is most effective and best for students? Why are we being casual about what any other profession might label malpractice? These questions drove me to reflect deeply on whether I was doing enough to support and advance what I know is what is in the best interests of all kids. The reflection led me to collaborate with our team and draft a list of things that should no longer be acceptable in education anywhere in the world. The list includes delivering, supporting, or enabling purely passive learning. Tacitly accepting passive learning under the guise of being collegial. Teachers owning the learning instead of insisting that the students own it. Teaching in the silo of a classroom, a school, or a school system instead of being a world-class teacher focused on creating world-class learners. Undermining school culture by not being radically candid in pursuit of what's in the best interests of our students. We then turn this list into our professional code of ethics and a manifesto to guide our work going forward. As you expand your flipped learning practice, we hope it's becoming clear to you that focusing on flipped lessons and flipping classrooms, it's not sufficient anymore. Students and teachers in every country deserve to teach and to learn in flipped schools, flipped school districts, even flipped school systems. Is this possible? Well, if it was possible to get classrooms in radically different countries and cultures all around the world to embrace passive learning, then it's possible to spread flipped learning to every classroom worldwide. We invite you to consider the questions we've posed and to ask what you can do to make active learning available to every child. If you're a superintendent, a principal, a tech coach, or a dean, we hope these questions encourage you to think bigger about getting more of your teachers to move from passive to active learning. If you're a teacher who's been thinking about flipping, we hope these questions will motivate you to start flipping this year. If you have flipped a few lessons, we hope this year you'll flip a few more. And if you flipped a few classes, we hope that you'll make the leap and flip them all. Finally, if you've flipped your classes for some years, but your peers have not, we hope that you'll think about how to help them, help their students get the active learning experience that you know is possible with flipped learning. But you're not in a position to dictate what other teachers do, you say. I understand. That was my response when that question was posed to me. Then I was reminded that leadership is not about authority or position. It's about commitment to do what you can, wherever you are, to make change happen. Let's get started. So now you know the first reason why we're about to make a radical shift in our direction. Here's the second. The growing interest in flipped learning has come with some good news and some bad news. The good news is that those who have been courageously flipping your instruction, while skeptical peers and administrators doubted the legitimacy and thought you were nuts, you have been vindicated. Today there is overwhelming proof that flipped learning works, that flipped learning is transformative, and that flipped learning is the path to active learning. The bad news is that we estimate that as high as 90% of the programs that are called flipped are 3 to 7 years behind the latest global insights and the best practices in flipped learning. Every day we're seeing organizations energetically embracing and sharing outdated flipped learning practices without knowing it. Almost every week we see teachers, schools, and countries that are struggling with flipped learning problems that have already been solved in the classroom, the school district, or even the country right next door. But most distressing is the rise of companies that are using the popularity of flipped learning to sell products that are not aligned with what world-class flipped learning is today. The heart of the problem is that there are too many people who don't know flipped learning like you know flipped learning. There are too many people who know just enough about flipped learning to do harm to their students, their schools, the whole concept of flipped learning without even realizing it. So as we looked at this problem, we had some very difficult discussions and made some very tough decisions, all of which led us to the exciting announcement that we're about to make today. The truth is, we have not kept pace with the need for high-quality training. Though I have flown over 600,000 miles giving keynotes and doing workshops, there's simply no way that one person can keep pace with what's needed to deliver the best flipped training everywhere in the world. We realized that we had to change our thinking, or the training vacuum would be filled with substandard flipped learning training and support. We realized that part of what we have to do to respond quickly and consistently to the worldwide interest in flipped learning is to elevate people, many of them like you, who already understand the global best practices and can meet the local need for training and support. So today, we're excited to break new ground with the announcement of the Flipped Learning International Faculty. The International Faculty will focus on 3 simple goals. Number 1, establishing the gold standard for flipped learning worldwide based on the best global insights and classroom innovations. Number 2, making the best flipped learning training available to every educator in every country in the world. Number 3, building an international team of world-class master trainers who can go into any country and develop world-class flipped learning that produces world-class flipped learning teachers and students who are world-class self-directed learners. This is a radical shift in direction and massive commitment. Fortunately, FLGI is comprised of the best and most experienced flipped learning researchers, master teachers, and flipped learning innovators in the world. FLGI is also home to the most passionate, well-trained, globally connected flipped learning practitioners on the planet. So you are uniquely positioned to set the gold standard for flipped learning worldwide. We are incredibly excited about this new program because of what we know about you. The people who are part of FLGI do flipped learning very well. But what's really special about those of you who've been practicing flipped learning for 3 or 5 or even 10 years is that you don't believe flipped learning can transform education. You know it. You know it because you've seen it. You know it because you've done it with your students. And you know it because you've been sharing it with your peers and your colleagues around the globe. And that level of knowledge, experience, and confidence can be transformative. In fact, what I'm about to say is mind-boggling, but true. You are among the relatively few people in the entire educational world who know that education reform is possible, that know exactly what it looks like, and know how to make it happen. That's why it's so important that we shift the attention from me to we. Everywhere I go, people thank me for the training I give to them. But the truth is, I'm basically a messenger who is sharing the insights, innovations, experiences, and the spirit of the entire flipped learning community. I've been the messenger for what the flipped learning community stands for, what we value, and what we can bring to education in countries around the world. Now it's time for us to cultivate an entire team of new messengers. It's time to shift the public attention from me to we. So what's next? We've already begun laying the groundwork for the international faculty with the launch of the next generation of flipped training programs. We're very excited about the Flipped Learning Level 2 certification because it's the first course taught by 15, count them, 15 Flipped Learning Masters instead of just me. The program sets a new standard by tapping into the expertise of the Flipped Learning global community. This first course is a masterclass in group space management and active learning. The strategies covered include flipped mastery, gamification, the in-class flip, reimagining learning spaces, the reimagined student-teacher relationships, first-person narrative, project-based learning, Socratic seminars, peer instruction, Genius Hour, and practical insights from the latest global research on group space instruction. Most importantly, it includes insights and strategies from the most experienced and accomplished pioneers, master teachers, researchers, instructional designers, and flipped learning practitioners in the world, including Eric Mazur, Pedro Noguera, David Jakes, Ramzi Musallam. We've also begun to identify and discuss the new program with the first cohort of international faculty members, and they are very, very excited, which made us very, very excited. If you've ever looked at what I've been doing and thought, I'd like to do what John does, we want to speak with you about becoming a part of the international faculty. If you love flipped learning, love being a part of this Flipped Learning global family, and have poured yourself into developing the skills of flipped learning, we want to speak with you about becoming a part of the international faculty. If you are thinking about a career move, or just want to open up new possibilities for your career, we want to speak with you about becoming a part of the international faculty. Just complete the form at the bottom of the page or contact Errol Smith, esmith at flglobal.org to get started. In the next few weeks, we'll be rolling out new pieces of the program. We look forward to working with you to create fewer classes that look like this and more classes that look like this in every country in the world. The future of flipped learning will be nothing like the past. Thanks for all you're already doing right where you're at to support flipped learning worldwide.